the stereotype of the shitty-ass noble being the word of the day, it exists for a reason. After all, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and in the medieval world, nobles had absolute power. As above, so below. God ruled heaven, the king ruled the land, the angels served God, the nobles served the king. And, you could outright, straight up, shank a peasant and it didn't mean anything. Yeah, it didn't matter. You were above the law. Unless you did something to another noble or to the king. And this was true across a lot of different cultures. And you were supposedly ordained by God. I mean, in China they took that to a kind of extreme where their afterlife and their heaven was a direct reflection of what things were like on Earth, the Jade Emperor and so on. And they were ordained by heaven. They literally had the mandate of heaven. But it's kind of cheap and easy to make nobility the enemy. It appeals to the rebel in all of us, I guess. RPG Pundit has gone on about this and contravening it, how the church shouldn't always be evil or nobility shouldn't always be evil. But the problem in both cases is that absolute power and the fact that it does indeed corrupt absolutely. But there is a flip side to this. There was an idea of noblesse oblige, that the nobility, that the king and so on had an obligation to their subjects to take care of them. A good despot, a benevolent dictator, can be a good thing. The trouble is they don't live forever, or they don't necessarily maintain the same attitude forever. Now, something that's missing in the modern day is that idea, but some very wealthy people have taken it upon themselves to have an obligation to the world, to exercise their power for the greater good. I mean, Bill Gates might be a thief and a liar and whatever else, that's what got him his fortune, but he has been spending a lot of that fortune tackling or trying to tackle problems like malaria and so on to reasonably great effect. So there is a philanthropic side. There are diamonds in the rough, and there are people who gain power, then use at least an aspect of it, some of it, to do good. So it can be effective to confound typical expectations when it comes to rebellion, when it comes to fighting the power, when it comes to the nobility or the clergy, by having some of them be genuinely good people, perhaps just caught up in a horrific structure, and to have those who rebel against them be as bad or worse than they are. One thing people never really seem to comprehend when they look at history and they look at the bloodiness of the revolts or the regimes of the communists or the terror in France or whatever, they never really think about what came before, how horrible Batista was, or how horrendous the Tsar was, and that these rebellions were a reaction to that then fell into the same pattern. And that's basically history. Remakes that are never as good as the first one, over and over again. But there's a lot to be learned there if you want to give your games nuance. But there's always, of course, something to be said for playing to stereotype and expectations. For a lot of people, the familiar story is the fascinating one. And as a creator, you often have to be careful that you don't fall into the trap of being so up yourself and so bored of the conventional that you create something that people just won't enjoy.